crime all the time with Jennifer Coffindaffer. Warning, today we will mention crime headlines, some of them disturbing to listen to, but warriors, you deserve the truth and reality about the landscape of crime happening across America. Jen Coffindaffer, host of the podcast Break the Case with Jen Coffindaffer, returns to the Warriors, and I am thrilled because I could talk to Jen for hours upon hours. Best by far X account. I go there every morning. She lists everything I need to know, and that's at Coffindaffer FBI. I'll have all of Jen's information in the body of the video for you to peruse and take your time and follow. But I want to review with you some of Jen's incredible career because it really warrants kudos all around. Jen is a former FBI agent with 3 decades of incredible investigative experience and specialized in gang, narcotics, organized crime, Title III electronic surveillance, and counterintelligence investigations. Jen participated in numerous high-profile arrest operations and led nationally recognized investigations with organized crime, weapons of mass destruction, and counterterrorism matters. Her career goes on and on and on. Again, I'm going to list it, Jen, because it's so incredible in the body of the video. So everybody, it really is. I mean, I can't believe you've done all of this. You're excellent. So, but right now we're going to focus on Break the Case with Jen Coffindaffer, the showcase for this podcast. Expert guest. Jen has retired agents, profilers, so psychologists, witnesses, and victims, and breaks down, right, Jen, on a weekly episode. So I want everybody. You have 2 now? Oh my goodness, I'm failing at my job as host of the Warriors. 2, okay, well, why not have 3 or 4? We want lots because there's so much crime to cover. But again, you're all over. You're on Apple, you're on Spotify, YouTube. And I want everybody also to watch Jen on News Nation. She is a long crime contributor for them. And again, as I mentioned, X, Coffindaffer FBI. You will not be disappointed. So welcome, Jen, back to the Warriors.
Thank you, Lynn. That was way too nice. Thank you so much. You can get
way too nice.
8 years.
Listen, way too nice. When I have to say counterterrorism, this and that, I mean, I'm putting it in the body of the video because you've done such incredible things that it really blows me away. I don't even know if I should say that, but such things that I think, you know what, are so empowering, especially for other women and girls to hear that you can have a career like this, perhaps in law enforcement or in any of these directions, podcast host. You've done it. Like, so you're a role model because I want us to really, as women, to mentor our girls and younger women, because we know it's tough out there, right? The environment, but it can be done. So I just think you're such a role model, and I'm just so happy to have you on the Warriors. I want to start, Jen, with something. I want to know 2 things. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. What makes a good witness? Now, I'm asking you this question because I was thinking about this morning. There are so many sleuths now and crime shows, and everybody seems to be loving the crime, and I can't turn on the TV. So there's crime all over, different crime shows. What makes a good witness?
2 things. First of all, the ability to honestly articulate your truth. That's pretty succinct. In other words, you need to be able to go up on the stand, and when you're asked a question, you need to be able to answer confidently. A lot of times witnesses are really telling the truth, and they come off terrible because the witness is so very, they're nervous. They can't think of anything other than their nerves, and it gets in the way of their truth. So confidence, telling the truth, and articulating.
Court's a very intimidating place, or even being questioned, by the police, by law enforcement, people. It's nerve-wracking. I've seen great people just kind of fall. It's just intimidating and overwhelming. So let me ask you, this kind of goes along the same line. What makes a good juror?
Oh, a good juror needs to be clean slated. In other words, they need to not be an individual who's hot-headed, an individual who has a lot of preconceived notions, who is far right or far left. To me, they're people who are moderate and have a very open mind and think analytically, not emotionally.
Let me ask you something. How do we, as I was sitting a few months back for jury duty, they were seeing if they wanted to pick me. And with the internet, What are your thoughts on that? Because I'm like, everybody's on the internet or on their phone or they see headlines or something. How
Well,
does that work today? Because everybody kind of is inundated with information.
no, it's so true. And people like you and me, we're kind of skewed, and probably your audience, from the standpoint of we're newsies. We're true crimers. We have passion about what we are involved in on a day to day basis. And that means we have to be connected to social media and the internet. There are a lot of people that aren't like that, like the majority of my family. They're not on social media. My daughter's not even on social media
Okay,
anymore.
good.
They are about their life. They live in their own space. Talk about touching the ground, and that's what they do. And I think many people are like that. Many people. And so, yes, I agree with you. It's everywhere, but are they really searching for it? And that's why you can still find good jurors in this country.
You're giving me hope. I like that because I forgot for a minute. You're so correct. We're in it like all the time. And I always tell myself I shouldn't assume anything. But I just figure things come across your phone. You can't help but see headlines, or you can't, even if you go on the phone just for a little bit every day, or you can't help if you put the news on to see something. So, but I'm glad you pointed that out. I think you're right. Most people are not focused like we're perhaps focused on certain things. And all right, throw that question away. That's a good answer, Jen. Good answer. Now, I don't know where to start with you. So many cases I want to focus on with you. We have to start with I saw this morning, top of your X's, I think that's what they're called now, tweets, X's, a woman selling, and this could be disturbing, everybody, but we're going to tell you the truth here. It's reality. A woman selling human body parts on Facebook Marketplace. I don't even know where to go with this one. Why is that allowed? Where is she getting these parts from? Who are the people buying them? What are they doing with them? And are they held also criminally responsible?
So, Lynn, this is a case that really echoes a case from about a year ago where somebody at Harvard that worked in that cadaver lab, well paid, by the way, was selling these cadaver parts and body parts. And he had a huge network, actually, of individuals, everything from shop owners who had boutiques that kind of offered that sort of thing, real fingernails, real body parts that would be incorporated in their art, to people who just individually wanted this. I think there are some Hannibal Lecters that really exist in this world. So it's really mind boggling in a sense, but really not, Lynn, because there's nothing that I think surprises you or me anymore. And wherever people can make money, that is what they're willing to do anything.
Yeah. Jen, that's my answer to everything these days, which is the truth. Why is this happening online? Why is big tech doing this? What? It's money. It comes down to money talks and crime walks. That's my saying. And it's a kind of a crass answer, but that is exactly the truth. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Now, I'm very disturbed about this story about this Carmelo Anthony, this teen, killing this other teen. Lay it out a little bit for us. I know he had $1 million bail, then that was reduced to 250,000, I believe. He's walking out. I saw some video on that. What are the facts we know about that? I'm very focused, Jen. There's so much, it seems to me, young people doing vicious and violent crimes, whether it's to their peers or their parents or their grandparents. I feel like I'm hearing horror stories like this from around the country every single day. What can you tell us about this case?
So, yes, this case took place in Frisco, Texas. Now, I'm a Texas girl. I'm very familiar with Frisco. Frisco is really an elite suburb of Dallas. When I say that, that's where the Cowboys are. That's where many of the players are. This is an absolute beautiful and really high-end sort of suburb, just to give everybody the background. Now, Carmelo Anthony is an athlete that attends one of the two high schools there. Austin Metcalf attended another high school there. They were at a track meet. Both of them were standout athletes. Metcalf, who is the victim, Austin, he was white. He was about 225 pounds, 6'2", big guy, really looking forward to trying to play the next level football. Carmelo Anthony, much smaller, 5'9", 130 pounds, fast, had been captain of his football team. But on the negative for Carmelo, at least in my perusal of his social media, was a gang signal, which was this is where this finger goes down, which is the disciples. And I'm very familiar with those gangs. I worked gangs in Texas for over 6 years on the streets with the gang unit. And also sporting what appeared to be an AK-47 and other videos that were really, to me, looked like kind of a wannabe tough guy. Now, what happened was at this particular track meet is Carmelo decided to go in, and I'm just going to call them by their first names, the tent area where Austin's team was. So that in and of itself could be considered pretty odd. You really don't want to be opposition.
Right.
But I have to look, Lynn, and think, well, did he play AAU basketball with one of the individuals? Did he happen to know a coach? Was he stopping by because he knew somebody? So I'm trying to give, of course, the benefit of the doubt, as opposed to another possibility, he wanted to start a fight, right? So he's sitting there and Austin says, hey, you need to leave. Like, you're in our tent. You know, he's taking up a chair, whatever. And he asked him to leave. And he stands up, meaning Carmelo. He has a bag, a duffel bag sort of bag. And he says, according to the police statements, words to this effect, he unzips the zipper and says, if you touch me, you know, you'll see what happens. And then Austin touches him. He says, well, now if you push me, do anything further, you're really going to see what happens. And Austin does, right? They're two, I believe they're both 17, you know, tough guy. And essentially what happened, as Carmelo is in the tent with Austin asks him to leave. Carmelo gets up. He has a duffel style bag. He unzips the zipper and he says, if you touch me, you're going to see what happens. I'm paraphrasing, words to that effect. At which time Austin touches him. At which time Carmelo warns again, if you push me or touch me again, you're going to see what happens. And Austin touches him again. There's no talk about shoving or pushing or punching, at least according to the police reports. At that point, Austin takes the knife and plunges it into the chest, heart of Austin Metcalf. Austin falls. His brother, he has a twin brother, runs to his aid, and Austin dies really in the arms of his twin brother. It's just heartbreaking. Meanwhile, Carmelo takes off. He throws the knife in the bleachers. He is eventually found right there in that area by a resource officer, the police resource officer that responds. He's arrested without incident. And during that arrest, he makes several, what we in law enforcement call spontaneous utterances, which we love those, by the way, because they are people's true reflections of what's happened, I believe. So he says things like, listen, I'm not when he's asked, what happened, he says, listen, not alleged, I killed him. So he makes a full admission at that point. He does ask, how is Austin going to make it? He asked that question. And essentially, that's what happens. He's arrested. He's held on $1 million bond. Then the magistrate judge who is in charge of the litigation initially, she lowers that bond down to only $250,000. And make no mistake, Austin's family has raised, last time I looked, about $100,000. Carmelo's family had raised at least that much. And they are, raising a lot of money in not GoFundMe's does support Austin, but they won't support anyone accused of murder. So it's another site.
But this is the rage part, and we don't really know that missing piece while he just walked in the tent and started stabbing him. But I did read that Carmelo's family raised close to $500,000.
I believe it.
Now, I don't know if this is true because I think it was this morning. I think that's what I read this morning. Close to $500,000 that they're going to use for lawyers and to buy a new house. Now, that's like a weird statement to put out. I don't. And then, so I don't know about that. Now, why would it go down to 250,000? Do we have any ideas, or it's just up to her, discretionary? She can do what she wants. I mean, it's
discretionary, but I would say if I would have been the judge, I wouldn't have lowered it. But let me give you my reasons why. I don't believe he's a flight risk. There's a two-pronged approach that judges take. Are they a flight risk, one, and are they a danger to the community? I don't believe he's too much of a flight risk. He's too young. His family and everybody is there. But this is the big problem. I think he is a danger to the community. Look, he got unhinged under that tent. Why did he have a knife at a school-sponsored track meet event? And I think he was unhinged. I think he was trying to show bravado, trying to show he was a tough guy. And I think he could also possibly be a danger to himself. Look at the LSU football player. He got in a particular accident. He killed a vet, a war vet. And he just days before he got bonded out too, but days before he was supposed to go before the court, he took his life. It's a lot for somebody to deal with, knowing if he's convicted, he could go to prison for 25 years or the rest of his life. I mean, depending on what happens.
Yeah, it's just so sad. I mean, there's so many stories of people just doing away with themselves. Yes, they could go away to prison for life or a long time, but they'd rather just. I fight algorithms all the time, so I just say do away with themselves, as opposed to other words sometimes. But it's interesting. Again, I go back to that rage at a lot of young people. I have so many questions, why did he have a knife in his bag? I guess obviously they don't do metal detectors there or anything like that. Why did he go in the tent? But you know what I also find interesting is we have increased in society. I know because it happened down the street from where I live right here in New York. With the Luigi Mangione, how the public comes, good for you, Luigi. And supposedly they're sending him millions of dollars or something like that. And women are sending him love letters in prison and all this. And people are looking at him like a hero. And I'm seeing a little bit of that also with Carmelo, where people are supporting him and saying, good for you. I don't know if you've seen any of that. It's a little unsettling that society is now weighing in on these issues like this when we have these horrible crimes happening.
Luigi Mangione, I'll backtrack for 1 second. He's a coward. He is nothing more than a coward. He laid in wait for an unarmed, innocent man. And when I say innocent, this isn't self-defense. He wasn't trying to hurt anybody. Brian Thompson was merely walking down a Manhattan street, and he shot him in the back. That is a coward in my book. And yes, I'm speaking strongly in terms of these facts because it's on video. He's on video. The gun matches the casings that were there. This is such a strong evidentiary case. And unless they can somehow get all the evidence thrown out, which they're trying very hard to do, this case is a slam dunk against Luigi. Okay, I digressed. Going to this one. This is also a coward. This was no fist fight. You're in somebody else's tent. You're asked to leave. That is not give you the authority to take a knife and plunge it into somebody's heart. That is somebody, to me, who is maniacal. They're on the edge. They are ready to commit violence, and they did commit violence.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not making light of this, but what happened, Jen, to good old-fashioned fistfights or yelling matches? I mean, we have such that's terrible. I shouldn't say that because it sounds I'm making light of it, but we have this violence, this increased violence. And now I digress because we have a lot of cases of children disappearing and being found recently. Not only are they not with us anymore, they're being dismembered now. There's a
Mhm.
lot of, media is not talking about. A few cases came out where they talked about it, but it's not enough to just get rid of them. They're doing these horrible things now. So I feel like, why do you think there's this increased, feels like increased sensation of we got to take it to the next level? I mean, I'm stuck on this word violence because it's really extreme.
Well, nobody wants to. I brought this up before, and somebody said, "Oh, Jen, you're just going with this, the whole video game idea. Just this idea that desensitizes. It desensitizes. These kids watch these videos that seem so real, and they're in war, and they're killing people, and they're knifing people to death, and they're blowing people's brains out, and it's so realistic looking. And if you don't think that desensitizes people to what it's really like, it absolutely does, in my opinion. Luigi Mangione played a game where he was an assassin. That was one of his video games. Yes, it wasn't one of these that was like some of the other games I'm talking about, but it still gives people ideas and practice and things like that. So I think part of it, Lynn, is the dehumanization of what video games have done to our young.
Yeah, I agree. We at the Warriors, we were just part of, and luckily, allies of ours out of Australia. It's called Collective Shout. We just got a game taken down called No Mercy. Have you heard of this one, Jen?
No,
Oh
Blue
my
Whale
goodness.
I have, which is
No,
another sick one.
this is called No Mercy. And No Mercy was on the Steam platform. And it basically was appealing to boys and young men, telling them to rape your mother.
Oh
I'm
God.
saying it. Women are bad. Girls are bad. You never take no for an answer. This was a game. But luckily, we got it taken down. Australia was the first one to get it taken down. We had a large petition. After about 72 hours, we got it taken down. But that just means something will come up behind it. But can you imagine that even made it to a platform and was being promoted? Because it goes into, are you following, Jen, any of this bro incel culture, which now has new meanings? I don't know if you're looking in, bro used to be we're drinking beer, we're smoking the cigars, we're living the good life. But now it has a kind of a new meaning. And incel as well, where it's toxic. Women are toxic. Women are bad. Girls are bad. Are you seeing any of this? Because I'm seeing a lot of it.
Only the incel piece of it, I follow very close that, because of the Bryan Kohberger case. That's always been from day one, my belief in terms of motive. People often say, why would a graduate student getting his doctoral in, criminology, what was his motive? What was his motive? Oh my gosh, his motive was churning inside of him, I believe, for decades, for maybe not quite decades, not quite 20 years, but probably 10, 15 years of being rejected by women, of not being able to have those types of women. And remember, people with these incel inclinations, they think that they are like Cary Grant. Okay, I'm dating myself.
Oh,
Tom
I
Cruise.
love it. I love Cary. I love the Cary Grant analogy.
Beautiful men of this world are. That's what they think of themselves. They
Really. They
can't even.
think they're like the George Clooney's of the world or something like that.
We're dating ourselves. Who's a young person?
I really don't know, Jen. Let me think for a minute.
I'm,
This is bad. I can't think of any.
yeah, I can't either. But you get the idea. A
No,
movie
no,
star,
right.
a young movie star who everybody wants, and they're being rejected. They think they're pretty great. And if you're not going to be famous, it's very easy to be infamous. Still well known, but just for a bad reason. And many of them decide that that's okay too.
Wow. And so fill us in, give us the update on that case right now today. What's happening with that case?
Well, a lot of motions are going on. And while that may seem boring to some, for me, oh my gosh, this is so interesting. We are getting to see the curtain pulled back on the Bryan Kohberger case like we never have before. We're getting new details, everything from DNA under Maddie Mogen's nails to the knife sheath purchase to digital information. We're getting a lot that we never knew or understood before, because this Judge Hippler, has said, listen, the days of just being able to say everything is sealed is over in my court. I want more of an open book, which is proper. It was always over sealed, because at the end of the day, they're not protecting another subject that's out there. They're not protecting an informant. They're not protecting the evidence in terms of collection. Other than that, that's why you seal something. And they're just they were sealing everything.
Why? Why are they sealing everything? Seriously, I don't.
Well, from the beginning, they were sealing, maybe in large part based on the heinousness of this, the fact that it just was like wildfire worldwide, this case. And they wanted to just keep everything under the button. This was something that the defense really wanted. And the prosecution pretty much went along with it. And Judge, that was seriously the name of the initial judge, he was getting ready to retire. He was very pliable in terms of his rulings. And he said, all right, basically they sealed everything. But Hippler is not that way. He's no nonsense. He's not letting the defense or the prosecution for that matter get away with anything. And we're steaming on ahead for an August date, which I would have bet money was going to be continued. But I don't know. Hippler's got it going at a fast pace right now.
I like that. Fast paced. Everything's so slow, at least here in New York. Slow, slow, slow. I just heard a fact. Now I really digress, that anything with domestic violence, these cases are taking, 2.5 years to even get on a calendar. I mean, but I digress with that. That's another program. Now we've got to go into, we're talking about bro culture, incels, and it reminds me of the Menendez brothers, even though I don't think we talked about bro culture in their day. What can you tell us about these two brothers in prison? There's been this big push. There was a big push to get them out. There was a Netflix, special on them. And then that kind of quieted down. Now I'm hearing more things about them. Lay it out for us.
So right now, the Menendez brothers are serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole for the vicious, heinous murders of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez. Jose was shot 6 times, including blowing his head off from the back. Kitty was shot 10 times. They had to go back to their car that was in the driveway and reload to continue shooting. A shotgun only holds 5 rounds, recall. And there were, 16 rounds shot. Kitty was actually crawling around with her wounds, and they shot her directly in the face after the reload. Anyway, long story short, I think so many people forget about the heinousness. This was also very calculated, Lynn. It was California, difficult to purchase weaponry. They were young. They had to buy ammunition. They set up their alibi. They set up what they would do afterwards, where they would dispose of their clothing and the shotguns. Then they did this amazing acting job that was Oscar award winning on the 911 call, as well as when police arrived. It rivaled what they did on the stand, the shaking, literally they should have gone into acting. And in any event, they were not initially arrested. They spent $700,000. They bought a restaurant. They spent money, on drugs and living it up. Bought cars, Rolexes. But Eric Menendez, his conscience started getting to him a bit. He's the younger brother. And he went to a doctor named Dr. Uziel. He told him about the murders. He was very specific. He told Lyle, he told them, then they both started going to Dr. Uziel. Then Lyle threatened Dr. Uziel that if anything comes out about their interchanges, he would kill him. They would kill him. And of course, Dr. Uziel was terrified. He started recording. He hid everything. And Dr. Uziel's paramour, girlfriend, he was married at the time, but his girlfriend would come late at night to wait for him and overheard everything. And she was the one that really leaked the information. And because the information, even though there's the doctor-client privilege, it was ruined because she could hear everything and Lyle had threatened. So on Thursday and Friday, they will have hearings to see if they're actually going to be able to get resentenced and be able to leave their prison cells.
Okay, that being said, Jen, this case is very naturally when I started hearing, and I remember hearing it at the time, but it kind of went away or was hidden about there was perhaps sexual abuse on the part of the father with one of the sons. It was kind of wishy-washy. Then we had somebody come forward from one of the boy bands to say, yes, he was also abused. So I started thinking, okay, working with victims and survivors, you definitely can snap, right?
100%.
But then I'm thinking they're buying Rolexes and it was so violent. Do you think anybody, in your opinion, so we don't really know what went on there, except if they're using this, which we may never know, as just some sort of story excuse, it's terrible for real victims of sexual abuse and crimes, because we deal with this all the time, and it's so tough to prove any of this stuff, yet a lot of people don't come forward because nobody believes them. It's just all mixed up. It's all over the place. So I'm kind of resenting them if this is not true, but we don't know yet. We have family members coming forward from the father's family, a lot of them saying, let them go or something like that. Do you think, Jen, in your opinion, do you think people ever really change when they're this vicious and violent a criminal? It's not just like you threw a punch or you threw, you shot one shot or it's so, I keep saying to you today, like extreme and vicious and violent. Do people change in prison?
Or that you even shot at a distance. This was up close and personal. I mean,
in her face.
Yeah, in the face as she's crawling around like a cat on the ground, just trying to. Can you imagine? And they were ambushed. They were asleep by one of Eric's accounts, but minimally they were relaxed, lounging, watching television, eating ice cream, I believe, and just completely ambushed. They had no chance. But to your point about the sexual abuse, let me just give a couple of facts here. Number one, in all their conversations with Dr. Oziel, that of course at that time was presumed, and Dr. Oziel said, I'm not saying anything, which of course he never did till he had to. They never mentioned sexual abuse. In fact, on tape, when asked why they did this murder, it was simple. They said, listen, our dad has us totally under the thumb. We hate him. And by all accounts, he was tough on them. He emotionally embarrassed them. He verbally abused them. That is really not very contested. Many witnesses got up. Not about sexual abuse, though, about being really hard on him and ugly. And I still think that's obviously very abusive. So they never said sexual abuse. Why did they kill Kitty? It was very simple for them. They said Kitty has huge substance abuse issues. She's depressed. And we're basically, I'm sorry to say this way, I'm just telling you what they said, putting her out of her misery.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. That's their reasoning. Okay.
That's sick, Jen. That's just
sick. And let's think about when this sexual assault came up. It came up under Abramson, Leslie. And she was an attorney who had just had a trial where she got somebody else off using this excuse. So to me, I'm galled because you and I, we're both advocates for victims of sexual abuse. We're all for Florida's death penalty now. If you sexually abuse a child under 12, and Idaho has just gone forward with legislation, we're 100% for that. But this is making a mockery out of it. So let's talk about the Menudo band member who 30 years later, when he's working on a production deal for his story, all all of a sudden was molested by Jose. And guess who's not around to defend himself? Jose and Kitty aren't around. There's no defense, this wild allegation that he throws out. And then let's talk about the letter. A Xerox copy of a letter that a cousin had supposedly secreted in his dresser drawer that does come out decades later. And guess what? He had testified previously in the other trial to help the boys. And he never mentioned any letters. So when you really look at the authentication of any of this quote unquote new evidence, it falls completely flat in terms of being legitimate.
Yeah. And actually, and this is my opinion, watching that Netflix, I don't remember what it was, 3-part series. I'm not sure what it was. It was different. They were very sympathetic actually towards the boys. And I thought, wow, we don't really know these things, but okay, I guess that's show business. I thought that was a little bit, because as you pointed out, the parents are not around to defend themselves. I always have a problem with people. I'm not victim blaming. Don't take it the wrong way. Anybody out there? When somebody's not around to defend themselves, I always have a little bit of a problem with that one. I mean, that being said, sometimes things come to people decades later, years later with all of this. But to me, it's not good. But that's my opinion with that. Now, we got to finish up with what's coming up. Well, there's so much to talk about. Rachel Morin. That's kind of what do you have to say about that? Because to me, it could go no other way, that case.
Yeah, Victor Martinez Hernandez, and that'll be about the last time I ever say that name. Here illegally from El Salvador, was wanted for a murder in El Salvador, attacked victims in California, which included a minor and a mother. I'm just going to call it the way I see it. I'm a ball and strike girl. Should have never been in this country, just like Laken Riley's killer, just like the 2 men in Houston that victimized that little 12-year-old, Nagari was her last name.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have been here. And I'm so grateful. And I'm not a political person. I'm a policy person. And I know from being an agent, you cannot have open borders like this and have people come through that aren't vetted. That's where terrorists come from. That's where these rapists and killers come from. And I understand we have plenty here. I'm not negating that. I'm just saying we don't need any more. We have to vet them and keep them out.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I am very happy that borders are somewhat closed right now. I don't understand. I'm just throwing it out there. Americans fighting to keep criminals here that hurt our people, our girls, our women, all people, all this crime that is happening. I mean, I'm in the middle of New York City. I got to tell you, Jen, it's a lot more cleaned up these days. All of a sudden, the streets are cleaner. I don't have hundreds of people hanging out, very threatening type of people. It's a new environment. It gives me a lot of hope. So we can't have that. We can't have this open. But I don't know these people. I want to know where all the feminists are that, they will not stand up for the women and girls. And you don't have to answer, but I'm just saying it astounds me. Everybody has a big mouth about everything. Here we have all this violent crime. Nobody's really coming out. I'll just leave that one. But I'm glad this case, I feel bad. She's got children and just going out for a jog. And this is just, everybody says the same thing to me when I talk to them, Jen. It's like, I didn't think this would happen to me, or I thought I'd be safe. We have to be alert these days. We have to be aware. We just live in that environment where we have to, even if we live out in the middle of the woods, we got to be careful what's going on. We got to finish up with one of my favorites. I like to call him Dirty Diddy, but he goes by P. Diddy or Puff Daddy or whatever he's going by these days. That trial is coming up. It's beginning May 5th. What do you think is going to happen there? Because again, we're always based on, video evidence, right? And this is another case where people were over 18 who went to these parties. Or what do you, this is going to be just a, I'm afraid the public, what I'm trying to get at is it's become so normalized, all of this. They become habituated. It's like, oh, another case, another sex trafficking case, another, coercive case. What do you think is going to happen with this one?
Well, first of all, I don't think there's a chance in Hades that it's going to happen May 1st. I think
May 5th. I think it's May 5th.
Sorry, May 5th.
Doesn't matter. It's May 1st and May 5th. They're all around the corner. They're right around the corner, both dates.
Any time this year. This case has 3 superseding indictments, I believe.
Yeah.
This case has so much evidence, video evidence. There is no way this defense team can be ready, in my opinion. And I think a judge would be very sympathetic to that. There's just too much. And they just did a superseding indictment about a month ago. So that means all, more evidence for them to pour through. So I think it'll be continued. And I don't think this will come around for a year or two. I mean, I'm hesitant to say this, but I'm just being honest again. Diddy made a huge error. And every time I saw photos of him, he was, smoking the ganja and drinking. So maybe mentally, between that and his lifestyle of everybody worshiping him, being the king, he totally underestimated these charges and that he could be in prison the rest of his life. This is a Fed deal. This isn't state. This isn't local. And the feds come with the goods, and their sentences are as stiff as they get. If I were him, seriously, he was worth $1 billion. Is it $1 billion? Or was it $1 trillion? Some crazy number. He's worth multi-millions of dollars. Planes. I would have gone to Vietnam and said, catch me if you can. But he's so sorely, Lynn, underestimated. And he is the modern day Epstein. That's just the facts.
I personally, I have no information. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think nothing's happening. I'm agreeing with you in the next few weeks. I also think I don't understand, because we work with a lot of now women that came up through rap music here in New York and hip hop and all that. And they've really relayed to me that it was totally a trafficking business, all of that. It was, they didn't know when they're 17 and 18 and they're hired to be a stylist or a makeup artist or just travel with us. Looking back now, they've said to me, it was totally like they thought that was normal. So this guy, I don't know with this case. This is just, I don't know how he got away with it for so long. Because we always heard, like, especially in New York, like he's doing this, he's doing that, but nothing ever seemed to happen to him. He had the incident with J-Lo even. I remember even thinking at the time, they were throwing guns out windows of cars, driving up 8th Avenue. He had a club at one time, a couple of decades ago when they were dating. But he was never really held responsible for that. Somebody else took the fall. And J-Lo says nothing unless she's giving evidence. Who knows behind the scenes? We don't know. But I do think, I point out this case. I'll tell you why, Jen, because I've had so many now women say to me, yeah, we knew about him, or we were part of that, or that hip hop, that rap. And again, is he going to get away? Because in our opinion, this is what they say to me. Epstein got it. That case is done, right? Like, the file drops a few weeks ago. That was nothing. It was not. We didn't learn anything. That was a farce. So they're like, it'll just be another powerful person with a lot of money. We're not going to see anything. All they want, they want to see some kind of, accountability, these victims. They want to see something just to say, they tell me. And they're all different women that don't even know each other, a lot of them. Like, they all tell me the same thing. Like, we just want to say, oh, okay. Like, they're being held responsible now. They're the bad guys. We're not the bad ones. So I agree with you on that. Now, Jen, finish us up. What do you want our warriors to know? What should they be looking at? What are you looking at? What should they focus on? Because I'm telling you, everybody's loving the crime. So, and you are at the forefront of all of this. So what do you want to tell everybody?
Well, I would keep you opened with this. And I think we need to keep a close watch on the case, the Texas case, with Austin Metcalf as the victim, Carmelo Anthony as the perpetrator. I just think that this case really epitomizes some of the many problems we're dealing with in our country, like you said. The viciousness, the violence, some of the race issues. And sadly, that's the last thing that this case is about. This case is really about violence and about taking a knife to somebody else's tent on school property at a school function. How is this happening? So I'm going to be keeping a very, very close eye on that case. Of course, Bryan Kohberger, the Delphi case involving Richard Allen. There's a lot of new information coming out. And that's been eye-opening for me personally. That's a lot. Sorry, I said a lot, but those are kind of
No,
my.
it's not a lot. There's just so much crime, and you're at the forefront, and you break it down so well for us. So we want to give our warriors, information, what to look. I don't. Here's what I never want, Jen. People become so overwhelmed, they just shut their eyes. They close the door. Like,
Yes.
no, like let's all be focused, or let's, be looking in our own communities about certain things, or always report something. If you think something's wrong or it's in your gut. And I got to ask you, because I mentioned before we started, Sebastian Rogers, anything on this child?
No, America's Most Wanted has interviewed both the biological mom and dad. Remember, they're separated, and then also the stepfather. So that's Chris and Katie Proudfoot and Seth Rogers. They've been interviewed. It went on for a long time, hours and hours of footage. And I was thrilled to see that, because when you look at the Karen Reed case, all of that footage, which is there's just been a motion, I believe, yesterday to get in all that footage from NBC and ABC and Vanity Fair and everything else, all her admissions and contradictory statements. And so I keep wondering if there might be some information that police can use. But how I see that case is so much like a Summer Wells case. I see it like a John Benet Ramsey case, where I think many people believe that the culpability begins with something that happened at home. And because let's face it, Sebastian Rogers, 15, he had autism, barefoot, with just a key ring and a flashlight, and never seen leaving that house. They have more footage than you can shake a stick at. It's like 100 hours from all the neighbors had Ring cameras.
I was just going to say, everybody's got Ring cam. A lot of people have Ring cameras. Every time I'm going to different suburbs, people have Ring cameras. So somebody somewhere has to know something or have some video, or somebody has it we're not hearing. That reminds me, you also posted a story today about a 21-year-old also with autism, because Sebastian, and so we have to warn people. What should we tell them? Because we're also, as far as autism goes, very never spoken about. We also have a lot of victims of sexual abuse, sexual assault, because they're so vulnerable or they don't understand. Nobody's talking about that. But tell us about this 21-year-old. He disappeared with an iPad or something?
That's it? Only had an iPad. He didn't bring a coat, and it was cold, didn't have his phone. And they did an exhaustive search, much like they did with Sebastian Rogers, but he's gone. It's a little bit different to me from the standpoint of Sebastian was 15. He wasn't worldly. He was out in a suburb that was well outside of the city and someplace he could go to. But I always call everybody's attention to, for the older autistic people, or people with autism, people with autism that go missing, Connor Jack Oswald. Connor Jack Oswald did something very similar. He walked away, and 2.5 years later, he was found homeless, starving, hungry. And they determined it was him, and were able to get him at least back home, and his family, to know that he was alive. So I always have hope for the older people with autism that disappear. It's the younger ones. If you look in Florida, I believe I posted on this, I believe 8 cases of minors with autism found in bodies of water.
That's another thing. They're drawn to water.
Yep. Drunk men and autistic, or children with autism, are drawn to water. Anyone with autism, but particularly younger, minor children. It's calm, it's soothing. Water is beautiful. as it ripples and the sun is on it or the moon is on it. It's beautiful. And you're drawn to it. I think men are drawn to it because they have to go to the bathroom usually. Sometimes because they have to swim, but they're drawn to it. And then they get in there and then they can't sustain swimming. And it's heartbreaking. And as you said, the other piece that's heartbreaking are people with disabilities who are abused physically. It's just horrible.
So we want everybody to have their eyes and ears open. If you see anything, please say something. Call 911. We always need records. Better to be safe than sorry. I can't tell you how many people have said to me, I saw something, I didn't report it, I should have. You'll be okay if you're wrong, okay? But usually your gut is right. So please, we need people to watch, look. If something doesn't seem right, you got to say something, report. Right, Jen?
100%. And I always point this out when this subject comes up. As an FBI agent, I can't tell you how many calls we received or reports we received from the public. Just saying things like, I'll give you one example that comes right off the top of my head. We had gotten a report that a particular house in a high-end neighborhood had a lot of activity, in the wee hours of the morning between, midnight and 4 a.m. It seemed like a lot of people were going in and out. There was stuff happening. Sure enough, we surveilled that house. It was a huge multi-kilo drug trafficking operation operating out of that house. We took down a huge case. It ended up going more nationwide even. It was a great case. Why? Because a neighbor finally said, I know this is probably nothing. They probably have teenagers coming in and out, but let me just make the call. And that's all you have to do. And it doesn't even have to be 911 unless it's urgent. If it's just something you're seeing, call that non-emergency number and report it. If you think somebody's following you, for instance, in a vehicle, and then you turn and they turn and you shake them, but you think you might take that license tag, call it in. How do you think Ted Bundy was found? This in large part was how Bundy was found, because he was in a tan VW, and that became very apparent of his involvement in other crimes because it was reported. So it's just really, really important.
Okay, warriors, you heard it straight from the mouth of our expert, Jen Coffindaffer. Well, always so great to share your voice and your expertise, Jen. I mean, I'm very thankful and honored to know you. You're really number one in our book for crime and justice and laying out these cases, and so easy to understand, truths and facts that we need to know about. I want everybody to follow along. Break the Case is the podcast with Jennifer Coffindaffer, also on X. Again, all the information. Jen, you're going to be all over the body of the video. I want to thank you for spending time with us, and let's just keep speaking about all of this. Let's speak again soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn, for having me, and to all your warriors. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jen.